Kayla, for people who don't know anything about your background or why I'm interviewing you, can you share with the audience if you're, let's see, what's the right way to ask this question? I should probably just go back and look at my question. Okay. So you're a caregiver of someone with a form of dementia. Can you share who that person is and what your role is in their lives?
Sure. I am a caregiver for my mother who has a form of dementia called behavioral variant frontotemporal dementia. It is, I believe, the most common form of early onset dementia, either that or the second most common form of early onset dementia. And my mother is 57 years old currently.
How long has this been going on for your mother?
So I would say our journey really started in 2017. That's when we first started noticing some of the more extreme changes in her. At that point, she started to become aggressive, very confused. She thought we were poisoning her. She had a lot of delusions about things, and it just came out of nowhere. I mean, we had no idea what was going on. We were very confused, very concerned about her. And she didn't really seem to, understand that we were trying to help her at that time. So we took her to the emergency room. And of course, at that point, the CT scan that they did was normal. And we went to see a psychiatrist. And for years, we were told, oh, your mother has this depression and she just needs to, take her medication that they, prescribed her, and then she'll get all better. And that was basically what we were told for years. And then last year, we went to finally see a neurologist, and the neurologist pretty conclusively diagnosed her with behavioral variant frontotemporal dementia, EVFTD. At that point. So that was pretty crushing. It's a terminal illness with no cure, no treatment, nothing. So it was a pretty harrowing process and a very crushing diagnosis to get, to be honest. So it's been a hard few years for our family.
Okay, so your mother rather was 52 then when most of this started.
Yes.
And so I think the audience watching this will also note that you're very young. And so how young were you when this started then 5 years ago?
When this started, I had just graduated from college, actually. So this was 2017. I graduated from Gettysburg College with my Bachelor of Science in May of 2017. And we began to notice these particular changes in October or November of 2017. And at that point, I was 21.
Wow. Okay. So 21 years old, that's a time in life when everyone is hopefully able to think of all about their future, and their whole focus is, the job they're hoping to get, the place they want to live, all these things. So over the last 5 years, have you had to set aside any of those things that you were thinking about when you were 21 due to your mother's situation?
I think that's a really complex question. I think that it's a lot of times really hard to separate ourselves and, our own goals and our own path from our experiences and experiences of our loved ones. And so for myself, I think I've had a hard time sort of separating, but I guess the short answer is yes. I have given up a lot. I have sacrificed a lot. I delayed going back to graduate school for several years, as a result of trying to figure this all out. So yeah, I guess I would say the answer is yes. But at the same time, I wouldn't do anything differently. I feel like I love my mom and I want to give her the best quality of life possible, and that matters to me. That matters a lot to me. And, I don't regret giving up anything in order for her to have that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What are things like right now in relation to you and your mom? Are you able to see her regularly, or is it something where she's living independently still, but just experiencing a lot of symptoms?
So my mom currently has progressed pretty far along at this point. And this actually is pretty recent. I mean, even as recently as last year, she was able to actually hold a job and communicate and pretty much take care of herself. Flash forward to a year from now, currently she doesn't really talk. She's mostly mute. She lies in bed pretty much all day. She is pretty agitated. So it's progressed quite a bit. She lost a lot of weight. So physically there have been some changes there. I do see her, I would say about every week. I used to call her every day back when she did still talk on the phone. And sometimes I don't really have the strength to see her as much as I'd like, to be completely honest. Mm-hmm. It's been hard the past few years. And I think seeing, what the disease has done to my mom, has taken a lot, taken a toll on me. And I think that sometimes, it's just hard for me to be there with her because I know what she was like before. And I just want that bond so badly, and I know it's not that way anymore. And, it can be hard. So.
Well, you had said before when we talked about the interview that you wanted to take some time to focus on some of the positives.
Yes.
How about we talk about some of those?
I would love to do that, actually.
I had the feeling that now would be a good time to talk about some positives.
So there have been a lot of positives that have actually come out of this, which sounds really strange, but I definitely found a lot of confidence in myself that I didn't know that I had, a lot of strength in myself that I didn't know that I had. If you told me 5 years ago that I'd be going through this at this age, I would tell you you're crazy. I won't get through this. But, I scheduled pretty much all of my mom's doctor's appointments. I accompanied her to all of her doctor's appointments. And I've, been able to stay organized and, I found a support group for me and my family. I've connected with so many amazing people who are also going through this. For example, like Jackie, and other, FTDers who are, living through this every day like we are, there's some really amazing people out there I've connected with. And I've also been able to deepen my relationship with my significant other. I feel like going through this, we really have come out stronger. He's been so supportive of me and, he's seen me during some of the hardest times of my life. And there's something about that really does strengthen our relationship, I feel. So, and I also have become a much more compassionate person myself. I feel like the things I care about are different. I, know what I value, I know what I care about. I know what matters to me. And I think that's something that not everyone has. And that's something that's come out of this for me, honestly. So I'm very grateful for that.
That is a lot of good stuff. Can you tell us about the support group that you mentioned? What is that? What's it called? Where can people find it?
Support group. That's a good question as to where to find it. The one that I found, I'm trying to remember where it was recommended to me, but there's a wonderful woman named Paula who runs it, who's a former social worker, and she has tons of experience. She emails me personally to check in. She's really wonderful. They've been a saving grace, honestly, because they, have been dealing with this for years and years sometimes, and we're, new to the game, new to this diagnosis, and, they can provide a lot of insight and perspective, which has been really amazing, honestly. So I'm very grateful for them. I'd highly recommend joining a support group for any kind of dementia, especially early onset or rare type, because you really need that kind of support and that kind of community, I think, when you're going through this, for sure.
Okay. What advice would you give to other people your age if this happens to their family as well?
That's a tough one. I don't pretend to be someone who has all the answers. I definitely don't. I would say definitely keep your friendships, keep your relationships, because that's going to be important. You need people. You cannot go through this on your own. You need your family, you need your siblings, your grandparents, like you're going to need everyone, because this is going to be hard, and support is going to be very important. And you're also you can't just have the hard in life. You need the good too. You need to keep going to weddings, and you need to keep going to graduations, and you need to keep, I don't know, dancing and just in your living room. I don't know. You can't just only have the hard stuff in life. So that's how I feel. Try to hold on to the good wherever you can, and don't hold in your grief. Let it out. Talk to someone, talk to a therapist, talk to your friends. That would be the advice that I have, and you'll figure it out. Honestly, I mean, there's no roadmap for this. There just isn't. I'm not going to tell you there is, but you have all the strength you need inside of you to get through this, and you will find a way, because we always do. So.
Yeah, that friendship thing is definitely a very important thing.
It is so much so. I didn't realize how much I valued, friendship and things like that. But you need those people in your life to keep you grounded and, check in with you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I flashed back to how many times I was on the phone with some of my friends, and none of them lived close by. My parents had just moved before my mom started to go downhill with her dementia, and then I had to move in with them. I didn't know a single person in the town where I lived. And so, so my only friend support was by phone. And so I just remember pacing in the backyard, freaking out, calling my friends across the country to talk. And without that, I don't know how I would have done it for sure. Can you put us in the setting of your everyday life? Literally today, was there just today, how much at the time did thoughts about your mom pop in, or were you working on logistics? What is the day-to-day life like for you right now?
So day-to-day life for me. So I am on the job hunt, just finished my, so I am looking for jobs. And on top of that, obviously doing all this coordination of appointments and things for my mom. So right now we're looking at transitioning her possibly to an adult daycare facility. So I am looking into some places for her. I'm hoping to go visit some of them and just get an idea for, what they have to offer, and, food wise, what they have and different things like that. So I have been scheduling those. I've been trying to keep my family, my sisters in the loop. I have two sisters who are both in school. One is in college and one's in graduate school in a PhD program. So I try to keep them in the loop as to what's going on. Touch base with my dad, because we are trying to actually get my mom's book of self-published poetry finally complete. So she has written several poems over the years, and we compiled them all. And we are hoping to get that out there into the world, and so the world can hear her voice and hear what she has to say. So
wow,
that's something that I'm also working on.
That sounds like a full-time job, just looking for the center for her. This might seem nitpicky of me, but you mentioned the food at the center. So that's something you even have to consider?
Yeah, my mom, she has a little bit of trouble swallowing, and she also just in general is very picky about what she'll eat. And so I just want to make sure, that they have something that she'll, because she's lost a lot of weight, and doctors have talked about how important it is for her to keep her weight up for her health. So I really want to make sure that she's able to, get some good meals in, and, hopefully gain some weight back and all that. So that's something that I'm definitely concerned about.
So from what you've seen, it's not a matter of all adult daycare centers are created equal. There's a lot of variation.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, you can also have the issue, my mom's 57, right? You can have some adult care facilities where you have all, 70-year-old or something like that, and the mom's going to feel out of place. So It's really tough finding, a place for an FTD patient who's often younger and can be, sometimes aggressive and a little has, physical energy still. So,
Wow.
It's definitely a full-time job on top of already, like everyday life things that everyone else does. But it's our path right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And this is from Alex. And it's what, that's your boyfriend?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So Alex's question number one is, you often say you feel your friends don't understand. What do you wish they understood?
I guess I wish they understood like the emotional toll that this can take on you. Because like you're grieving someone who's still here and someone you're caring for and, someone who cared for you your whole life. And that's hard. It's a lot. It takes a lot of physical energy, a lot of emotional energy. And I think, sometimes I haven't always had the ability to show up for my friends in the way that I've always wanted to when going through this. And I felt bad about that. And I guess I just, I guess I wish they understood that I love them and I am doing my best, I guess, at being a friend right now. And that sometimes it might look a little bit different for me because of this experience and because of, the realities of what life looks like for me right now with this. So yeah. And I guess, even though I'm grieving, I still want to be there for you. I still want to show up for you and celebrate you and all of that. So please don't feel afraid to, share your happiness with me either, because I want to share in your happiness too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely know what that's like. Partway through my experience with living with my mom, which went on for about 2 years, it was during the pandemic and my kids, my daughter's college closed, so she needed to go somewhere. My son's businesses in New York City where he worked went out of business. So he needed somewhere to go all of a sudden. So suddenly both kids moved in with me and my mom and my dad. And that was
during a pandemic.
Yeah, it was crazy. And, but I remember when they got there, I had to sit my kids down and be like, look, I am not the same person you remember. I cannot be available for you in the way that I would like to be. And basically I just told them, I was like, my resilience is completely shot. So I'm going to be asking you for help. And that was like a big role reversal. But I was, so I really like your answer. And Alex asked a good question because it's a big deal for people to understand. It's just friends to understand is just so different.
I'm really glad that you're able to, reach out to your sons and ask them for that help, because I think sometimes it's hard when you're going through this to feel like you can ask for help. So I'm glad that you were able to do that.
Absolutely. Let's say that you just met someone. And again, I really think it's important to keep it your age relevant because your situation is very unique because you're like at a time in your life where like you're really like forming those lifelong friendships in your early 20s. So if you met someone who was sitting in a support group and they were 25 years old and suddenly this had just started and they're like, I don't know how to talk to my friends about this. Like what advice would you give that person who's like, how do I talk to my friends about this?
So actually my first piece of advice would be to take some time on your own to understand your own experience of it first, because that was important for me because this is a lot, but, this experience is a lot. And I think it's important to, not everyone, needs like necessarily, professional support to process it, but that can be a good, resource to have someone objective there. And then I think just be honest. Honestly, I think people are often afraid to, share their truth, and they're afraid that people will run from it or that they won't be open to hearing about it or, what have you. But in my experience, I found that most people I mean, obviously in like a context appropriate manner, like a, like a very close friend, you can open up to them about things like this. And I think that in order to have really authentic friendships, it's important to really to show up as all of yourself. And that for me means showing up and this is part of who I am. This is a part of my experience, I mean, I can't erase that. That's so, yeah.
Okay.
That would be my advice, but I don't know if that's good advice or not.
Sounded good to me. What government supports are there for people with Alzheimer's and how can they be improved? And there was a side question. What is FTD and is it a type of Alzheimer's? I think those kind of go together.
Yeah. So FTD and Alzheimer's are kind of like siblings. So they're both types of dementia. And so with Alzheimer's, basically the parts of the brain that, kind of die first or are impacted first are really the parts of the brain that have to do with memory versus an FTD. Really, it's the parts of the brain in the front and something called the temporal lobe, which are parts of the brain that really are important for planning, language, impulse control, really all the things we need to be able to hold down a job and be able to function in society. So you can imagine what happens when those, things start to go. You start to have a lot of issues. So there really, going back to the original question, there really isn't a whole lot of support out there for Alzheimer's patients specifically. If you, get SSDI, if you pay into that, you can get that. If you have long-term care insurance, that's a resource, but you're really largely limited to, resources that you paid into or resources that you, purchased for yourself. There is Medicaid, which is an option if you are very, very poor, and there's Medicare if you're over 65. But for the early onset dementia patients, there really isn't much, to be completely honest. And it is really, really hard for our caregivers out here. I will say the AFTD is a great foundation, and they have given 2 years in a row to my family the Comstock grant, which is $500. And that has been wonderful for getting, new clothes for my mom, getting her hair done, things like that. So the AFTD is great, and I'm very grateful to them for that support.
I've heard of AFTD, obviously, but I haven't heard of the Comstock grant before. How did you find out about it? How did you apply?
So the AFTD is something that I found out about after the diagnosis. I went to, do my research, and I found this organization, which is basically the Association of Frontotemporal Dementia. And they advertise on their website that for all FTD patients, every calendar year, they can apply for this grant. And it's very easy to apply for. It's on their website. You just fill out some simple information about, your address, your name, things like that. And then only one time, just attach, paperwork confirming the diagnosis. And then, it's very easy. They send you, this grant card in the mail within 4 to 6 weeks. And it's very simple, and they're very wonderful. It's, no strings attached grant that is given to us. So
that's fantastic. That's really neat that they do that. I did not know about that until I'd read your questions.
The AFTD is really a wonderful resource. They have all kinds of things. They hold an amazing, conference every year and try to advance research. And so I really shout out to them for.
What is unique about the FTD grief process?
With FTD, so I saw a really good quote once, and it said that for Alzheimer's patients, oftentimes the family says that the person is there to the end. And with FTD, they don't say that. And it's because of the part of the brain that's affected, the person really changes. And oftentimes the person just isn't the person you knew with FTD. And that can be really hard. So you're really grieving someone who's still here, because oftentimes the person with FTD is, a totally different person from the person who raised you or your spouse or your friend, Wow. And that can be really, really hard. You still need to take care of them. You still need to care for them. My mom became, aggressive at points. She became very insensitive. That's a feature of the disease for many people. And my mom was, a wonderful, a kind, giving person. And, for me to be 21. And for my sister, she was 15 when this started. I mean, having your parents just suddenly change in this way and suddenly, not even want to hug you or talk to you or, it's traumatic. Wow. Really, it is, honestly.
Wow.
No, I mean, it's a tough grief process. And I think I would be grappling with this probably for a while. So I think it's unique in that way for sure. Although every dementia, family of course suffers from grief, and that's an ubiquitous experience. Of course, I don't want to say that it's like we're I don't know, but
Wow, I can't imagine what it was like to be your sister at 15 and having to go through that. Question number 5, what family or community supports do you have? I guess that means currently. Yeah, currently, what family or community supports do you draw from?
We have, my dad's parents are really wonderful. My grandparents, they've been very supportive of my mom. They will have her over and they, help my dad with appointments and things like that. And me, obviously. The support group has been great with Paula. They've been really wonderful. To be honest, outside of that, we really haven't had a whole lot of support. It's a tough illness. It can be really isolating. I don't think our experience is unique. I think a bunch of families go through this where you really are, limited to the immediate family and, the people who are closest who step up. So I think that's unfortunately a very common thing in America that a lot of people experience.
The support group that you have mentioned, is it online or is it in person?
So they actually have both. They have an online option once a month, I believe, and then once a month it's in person. I typically go to the virtual ones, which are through Zoom, but the in-person is also an option for anyone who wants to do that too. So, wow,
that sounds really great. I wish I'd had something like that. My main support was a Facebook, just a message board on Facebook, which was great, but it was just reading words of other people. I never got to talk to other people or interact with others. So that sounds pretty good that you're found that.
It is. Yeah, no, it's really wonderful. And they, of course, we bounce ideas off each other. And, it's nice to have people who know what you're going through day to day,
Absolutely.
I love it too. So
what do you wish doctors knew?
Honestly, I really just think in general, I wish doctors knew more about FTD, period, because I think even among doctors, I think FTD is really little known because it's relatively rare and it's a newer, it was recognized more recently. So because that was a problem for us. I mean, when trying to get a diagnosis, we were told, okay, she has depression for years and years and years. And, no one even thought to say, okay, maybe this is a neurological issue or something else. So I think that there needs to be more research done for sure. Research is a part of the problem. And then awareness, I think, goes a long way, not just with doctors, but with the public as well. I think that there needs to be a lot more awareness around these diseases. And because I think also it affects, if you go out to a restaurant or something and, FTD people often act inappropriately because that's just part of the disease. And I think people, it would be better if people understood that this is actually a brain disease and not just someone being difficult or someone, trying to harass you or something, so, yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, that does give me one other kind of spontaneous question. So does that mean that you all have a primary care physician that now understands and accepts what's happening and helps guide you?
Sort of. My mom's primary care doctor, I think, somewhat understands. I think he understands that she has dementia. I don't know that he necessarily gets the specifics of FTD specifically. But he will, he'll write a prescription for an SSRI, he'll refer her for physical therapy. So he is supportive in those ways, which is really wonderful.
So is there like the way if someone has cancer, they're assigned to work with an oncologist. So in your mom's situation, is there a subject matter expert that she's able to work with who tracks her progress?
So originally, no, we actually saw a neurologist, and originally it was like there was no follow-up appointment or anything. It was just we saw her, got the diagnosis, and that was it. And that is not unusual for FTD, is I've heard a lot of stories, and that's not unusual. Because they don't really know there really isn't anything to be done in a lot of cases. I mean, there's no medication. So doctors just make the diagnosis and they kind of just, you go home and that's kind of it. But we did find a wonderful doctor at the Young Onset Dementia Clinic at Hopkins. And he's been following her now. And he's wonderful. We have his personal email. He's done Zoom meetings with our family individually without my mom, just to talk about what's going on. He's really wonderful. And I'm so grateful that we found that clinic and found him because he's been here. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. That does sound like a really good asset to have. Are there any questions you wished I had asked or any final comments that you want to make sure you express? And it's okay if there's none, just checking.
I guess I just want to express that it's not all bad. And I feel like, when you go through anything, there's always growth and there's something to be taken from it, and that's how I feel. And that's the way that I've always lived my life. And I try to see, what can I take from this and what can I learn from it? And even with doing this interview, I mean, part of is I feel like this is part of what I should be doing in order to help educate people and, help share what I'm going through. So, yeah.
Awesome. I'm curious, are those traits that your mother passed along to you?
Yeah, she was very much like that.
I had
a very strong, stubborn, and resilient woman. So I take a lot of her after me. So
yeah, I had a feeling.